Last two that I will touch on here at the quarterback position, Mac Jones and Desmond Ridder. I like both of their unders, and this is less about the players themselves and more just that when I'm looking at the board and the quarterbacks that I think have the biggest chance to not play 17 games because of performance, with essentially getting bench equity, I think Mac Jones and Desmond Ridder are those plays. Mac Jones line is at 330 or 3,399 and a half passing yards. His line on underdog is like 150 yards lower. He's minus 140 to go over the same line on DraftKings as he is on Prizepicks. I think there's a little bit of potential to wait in case DeAndre Hopkins does get signed to the Patriots in the coming days. Like we've heard rumors could happen. I think his line would get bumped, and that would be an even better opportunity to take the under. But just in general, I mean, I know you kind of disagree with me on this point, but I think that there's a good point, a good potential opportunity here that Mac doesn't make it through the full season, that Bailey Zappi gets some games in. And with Desmond Ridder, he's just a complete unknown. We don't know. It's going to be first and foremost a run-centric offense to begin with. And if he struggles, the team doesn't have that much invested in him. Taylor Heineke is a capable backup. And all it takes is a string of bad games from Desmond Ridder and a run-first offense for Taylor Heineke to get in there and be a little bit, like the trusted option. So out of all the quarterbacks on the board, I think that you get the most equity in taking these unders just for potential benching.
Yeah, definitely agree. And then you also have injury upside, which we haven't touched on. And a lot of the plays that we are discussing in this video are unders, right? Because there's just a ton of ways for NFL players to fail rather than succeed. The market accounts for people wanting to bet over. So some of the lines are inflated a little bit. As we saw with Russell Wilson, it's inflated on Prizepicks because Prizepicks knows most of their users want to bet overs. So they are getting in at a bad price. That's why in the NFL, you take unders because a player can get hurt. They can get benched. With skill position players, other players can rise up the depth chart. And there's just a ton of variance in the NFL in general. So capitalizing on unders is definitely the most profitable strategy with these NFL season-long props. And I do agree that Mac Jones does have some bench equity. Do I think he's going to get benched? No. Do I think he's going to play better? Yes. But like you said, there's value in this line. His under on books is juiced to minus 140. You're getting this here. If you play it in a 6-legger, you're getting it at minus 117, right? So there's clear-cut value with Mac Jones under, and there's a ton of ways for him to fail. The skill position players aren't good unless they sign DeAndre Hopkins. But right now, as it stands, it's Kendrick Bourne, Devontae Parker, Juju Smith-Schuster, and a couple rookies, right? Not great. Tyquan Thornton, year 2. Who knows with him? I do think the Patriots will be better. I do think the offense will be better with Bill O'Brien, and there will be more continuity, better plays, but still many ways for this to hit. And then with Desmond Ridder, I agree with everything you said. And I mean, he's just trash. Like at the end of the day, he's not good at quarterback in the NFL, and taking an under on a player like that is always good. So don't mind either of those. My next player that I want to correlate with the Mac Jones under, as we talked about before, correlation is key with these NFL season-long parlays, is Juju Smith-Schuster under 750 and a half receiving yards. Okay. We're going to get this news in, or we're going to get this line in potentially before DeAndre Hopkins signs. So there's upside of DeAndre Hopkins coming in and taking targets and yards away from the Patriots wide receivers. You have the injury upside, of course, and then you have the upside of Juju Smith just being a declining player in the NFL.
And that's what we've seen from him, right? Since he played side by side with Antonio Brown, he has been a declining player.
Yeah, he is clear-cut not the same player that he was early in his career. And 750 and a half is pretty low, I will say. Like, it will only take a few good games from Juju for him to really threaten this line. But over the last 3 years, how many 100-yard receiving games do you think Juju Smith-Schuster has?
Off the top of my head, over the last 3, I would say like 2, 3.
He has 3.
Okay.
He has 3 100-yard receiving games over the last 3 years of his career.
Mhm.
So his ceiling is very, very low. Then the Patriots' offensive ceiling obviously isn't great, I will say. You
Mhm.
have the upside of DeAndre Hopkins being added. You have injury upside. You have him just not being a great player anymore. And he could potentially lose snaps and lose targets to some of the other players on the team. I think this is just an easy under, to be honest. Like, I'm a Patriots fan. Obviously, I want the Patriots to succeed, but 750.5, I'll gladly take this under. And if he goes over, you just charge it to the game at that point.
Yeah, and I'm the opposite. I'm actually a Patriots hater, and I think that they'll be in play for the first overall pick after the season.
Yeah,
So I mean,
no,
this is easy cash. Lock it in.
no, no chance that happens. But I mean,
It, it's
you
them,
are a hater.
it's them, the Raiders and the Cardinals all vying for that first overall pick. Bottom tier teams. And then, speaking of the Raiders, right, and us talking about some wide receiver unders here, Devante Adams at 1325.5 receiving yards on Underdog. It's 1,300 on Prizepicks, so you get a little extra 25-yard cushion here on Underdog. This is a tough one because, obviously Devante Adams is an elite player in the NFL. He's gone over 1,300 yards in 4 out of his last 5 seasons. Granted, 3 of those, quote unquote, successful years were with Aaron Rodgers. And last season, of course, with Derek Carr and several injured skill position players in that offense, even further consolidating the target share around him. To me, this kind of comes down to like the situation that they're in, right? The quarterback play is abysmal. Jimmy G may not even be able to make it to the team if he doesn't pass this physical. Like, they have outs to void his contract, and behind him, you've got Brian Hoyer, dude. Like, if Jimmy G can't make it, why is Brian Hoyer even still in the league? First and foremost, that's confusing to me, even in it, like in and of itself. So what is their backup plan? Sign Carson Wentz, who's apparently on the prowl for a job, trade for Trey Lance, something like that. Like, the situation is horrible. Devante Adams is creeping up there in age. He's 30 years old now, turns 31 in December. Hunter Renfrow and Jacoby Myers, like, they're not alphas in the sense that I think that they threaten Devante Adams and him getting his within the offense, but they are career target earners. Both of them. They have been. They're both good wide receivers in the league. And this line is high. He's got the 3rd highest line of any receiver on the board, higher than AJ Brown, higher than Tyreek Hill. And to me, it's just, we've talked about how many outs to failure there are. You miss 1 or 2 games because of injury, and you're probably hitting the under. You have the worst quarterback play of your career, you might hit the under. He might still be able to command 1,200 yards, but 1325, it's a really high number. As elite as I think Devante Adams is, I really don't like the situation with the Raiders this season.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. We're kind of hammering the same point that there's just a ton of ways for players to fail. And it's more so not because Devontae Adams is declining. He showed last year that he's not. It's just the situation got worse, right?
Significantly, yeah.
And that's because of the quarterback play. Like, Jimmy Garoppolo may not even be on the team come week 1. And then what do they do? What route do they go if Jimmy Garoppolo isn't on the team week 1?
Bringing Cam Newton out of retirement.
I truly don't know. And then even if he starts week 1, Jimmy Garoppolo has played 1 full season in his career. 1. He's been in the league since 2014. Granted, he was a backup to Tom Brady his first 3 years, but in his 6 years with San Francisco, he played 1 full season. Now, he did have a season where he played 15 games out of the 17, still missed a few, but he is an injury-prone quarterback, point blank period. So even if he does start week 1, there's still a ton of risk with Jimmy Garoppolo at the quarterback position. He's never supported a player over this line ever.
Never.
In his career. And and really the offensive situation could just be abysmal with the Raiders. So I do love this under. I think this is pretty free. His 1,300.5 is minus 110 both ways on DraftKings. So like you said, you're getting a 25.5-yard cushion there to the under. If I had to put a line to it, that would probably be like minus 125. on DraftKings. So easy Devante Adams under. And then kind of a similar play for my next one is Mike Evans under 950 and a half. Literally same situation. Terrible quarterback play, abysmal offense potential. With the Bucks specifically, there are other players that can earn targets in Chris Godwin, Rashad White. So you got two players that he's also competing for with targets and what I will think would be a low volume passing offense this year. Under 950 and a half. I know it's scary because Mike Evans is the guy that goes over 1,000 yards every year.
And he's already talked about it, right? He said, I want my 10. This will be 10. If he hits it this year, it'll be 10 that I want it. I'm going for 10, baby. So, I mean, if you want to doubt Mike, I feel less confident about that one. I don't think Baker is quite as terrible as Jimmy G, but I know you notoriously cannot stand Baker Mayfield.
I mean, Baker Mayfield is just horrible. He's just bad at football. Mike Evans' line is 925 and a half on DraftKings. Minus 110 both ways. So you're getting value on Underdog and Prizepicks. Obviously, you should be playing both. If Prizepicks is legal in your state, Underdog is probably legal as well. If you're not playing both, you're an idiot. Point blank, period. I'm sorry. Somebody has to say it.
Yeah.
You got to be playing both, but they are the same line on Underdog and Prizepicks, so it doesn't really matter here. But Mike Evans under 950 and a half. I know it's scary. He's a 1,000-yard receiver. He doesn't get hurt, blah, blah, whatever. He's also been blessed with a few years of Tom Brady playing elite football. He's been blessed with Jameis Winston being a gunslinger and throwing for 5,000 yards a season. Not this year. He's got Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask as his quarterbacks.
And turns 30 in 2 months before the season starts.
Yep, and was not great last year, right? He would have went under this line had he not had a absolute snap week the last week of the year. Which let me look that up real quick. Let me tell you what he had in week 17 of last year, or in week 16. He finished with 1,124 yards. In week 16, he had 207 yards on 10 catches.
And 3 touchdowns. And I didn't have him in my DFS lineups. I remember.
Right. He had 3 games the entire year with over 100 yards, and that was with Tom Brady at quarterback. Now insert Baker Mayfield / Kyle Trask. I mean, easy under.
Chalk it up.
Easy under.
I like that.